Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back. And as I promised, today we shall have a quick review of everything I have read this first half of the year 2021. In my normal book reviews in the future, I will go more in depth on the plot, world building, character and so on, but for this I'm just gonna rate these books and just talk a small bit about them. But first I just wanted to talk about the books I'm reading right now. I'm reading 4 books right now, but I haven't got so far in them. This one, A Dance with Dragon, Part 1, Dreams and Dust by George R. R. Martin, is part of the Song of Ice and Fire book series, the Game of Thrones series. It's the 5th book, part 1 of the 5th book, and I haven't really read much. I'm still on the prologue, so like 10 pages in, something like that, but so far it's good, interesting. The other one is Alphabet Squadron, it's a Star Wars book by Alexander Fred. It's the first book in a trilogy. So this is my first like story-based Star Wars book I'm reading, so it's actually quite good seeing the squadrons and the X-Wing or the pilots of the New Republic, and pretty sure I might see some of the TIE Fighter or the Empire side, because I don't think I have seen anyone from the side of the Empire apart from like deserters. But yeah, I'm like 50 pages in, it's 400 pages, so kinda like 8% in, I'm not sure. Okay, so this is the Bounty Hunter Code I've been reading. It's a Star Wars book too, but it's not a story based or plot driven, it's a lore book. So it tells you more about the lore in the Star Wars universe, and this one is specifically about the bounty hunters, how they operate, and it also has comments from previous owners of the book. So Boba Fett is one of them, and you have Bosak. I don't know if you pronounce it Bosak. Yeah, Bosak, Dengar, and other famous bounty hunter. I don't know. I think Han Solo also comments on the book, but I think I have only seen it once, so he's not that frequent. But it's also a nice book read to learn about the lore. So. And another one, yes. It's a big one. It's a big book, and here we have it. A Song of the World of Ice and Fire, an untold history of Westeros and the Game of Thrones. George R. Martins and Elio M. Garcia Jr. and Linda Antonson. Yeah. And this one I have only read I think 50 pages, mostly because I'm also gonna read Fire and Blood. It's on my list of books that I'm gonna read on the future, so I want to read it before I read the chapters about the Targaryen family and dynasty, because both books go over the history and the events, but the Fire and Blood goes more in detail. So I want to read that first, then I come to this book and read the overview and continuation of the Targaryen dynasty. So now to the books I have read. The first one is gonna be A Game of Thrones. So it's the first books in the Song and Ice of Fire book series. This one is kind of a cheat because I actually read more than half of this book in high school. So I didn't fully read it, so I read like 500 pages and it's like 700. Yeah, 700. But I think I remember quite a lot. But yeah, this was the first book I read this year, and it's Game of Thrones. I already seen this TV series, so I know most of the events here because the season 1 is quite faithful to the first book. So a lot of things are the same. Some more detailed battles, and of course you seeing as it's point of view POV chapters, you know more about the characters, how they think, how they thought, and yeah, and you see some other stuff like flashbacks that you don't see in the TV series. I actually like this quite a lot. It took a while to get used to George R. R. Martin's writing style because he's quite detailed. But after a while, I actually appreciate it because it helps me imagine it in my mind while reading it. And just a quickie about the characters. All the characters I found interesting. I liked that it created a world where nobody's really the ideal hero. Even they're like one. Maybe Ned Stark is the closest one, but it also shows that the world doesn't favor those kind of heroes. Like you have Tyrion Lannister, who's actually not quite a good guy, but from his point of view, you understand why he does the things he does, and the bad things he does is more like a survival mechanic than it is to it's more about survival than being evil. So yeah, but there are quite a lot of characters that you won't like, or you will love to hate. And yeah, all the Stark families, I love all the characters there. Maybe Catelyn Stark, she's interesting, but kind of knowing the other characters' point of view, you kind of sometimes get irritated, but it's not her fault. It's more like you know more, so you kind of think, oh, why are you doing this? But yeah, but overall I would give this book an 8 out of 10. So I'm just gonna repeat myself that on the future I will give a overall rating, and also a rating about the plot, the world building, and the characters, to be more in depth. Okay, so to the next book I read, and it's the continuation of the Song and Ice and Fire. So it's the Clash of Kings. This one was quite a big read. It's like 900 pages. Yeah, 900 pages. Yeah, and at least compared to the first book in the series, it's quite slow paced. There are moments their characters doesn't do. They are traveling, but they don't do a lot like this. They stop at a place and just explore the place, and then later on, like, you kind of question, like, why did we do that? Like, what's the point? But it's also interesting because, as I said before, the George R. R. Martin George R. Martin likes to describe a lot, so the things that I see and the places they've been, you kind of have a really detailed image in your mind, so it's quite interesting. And I'm pretty sure the characters are the same point of view, but they add another one, a new one, and we lose another one point of view from the other, so it's kind of the same amount. One of the characters that was more in the sideline becomes a point of view character, and you see more of his culture, so it's one of the Greyjoys. What's his name again? Yeah, but Greyjoy something. I will put it somewhere here. So you see a bit of their culture of the Iron Island. That's quite interesting, seeing the culture and the family of the Greyjoys and exploring that. It's quite interesting. But I think my favorite part of this one is probably Tyrion's chapters. Oh no, I forgot. They also add another point of view, so it's two new points of view. Davos, who's in Dragonstone and is kind of the point of view of the Stannis Baratheon side of the war. So yeah, Tyrion. Okay, so back to my favorite character chapters. Tyrion, I liked him a lot because his chapters are kind of what I like about the Song and Ice and Fires. A lot of political intrigue and scheming and trying to outsmart the other ones and like getting people to your side and so on. And that's something I love about this series. The other characters chapters are good, but some of them are still like slow paced. Catelyn's are, I guess it's a bit long drawn. It's like because Catelyn Stark is more about the war, and she's kind of also representing Rob's point of view sometimes. So with her character you meet a lot of new characters and names and so on, so you might hear like 50 new names, or maybe not 50, 20 new names in a new Catelyn chapter, and there's no way you will remember all the names. But she introduce or meets some new characters that later on will be important, like Brienne. Yeah, and what more? And yeah, Daenerys chapters, even though hers was a bit slower, I quite liked her chapter, mostly because they were different from all the other, because all the others are in Westeros, and okay, seems like we had somewhat of a technical issue. Turns out my camera ran out of battery, so this is me the next day realizing it while editing. So I'm gonna need to record 30 minutes worth of video, so yeah. Okay, Clash of Kings. I'm pretty sure I talked quite a lot about this book. I'm just gonna go do a quickie, because I realized later on that I was talking too much, and I don't want to make it an half an hour or 40 minutes video. So okay, Clash of Kings. I'm pretty sure I talked a lot about it. Like the chapter, Tyrion especially. Daenerys was great, different from the others, and it has a bit of a pacing problem, but apart from that, I really liked it, and I give it an 8 out of 10. It's Clash of Kings, 8 out of 10. Then moving on to the third book I read this year, first half of the year, is a lore book. Okay, so I like to read a lot of lore book on like Star Wars, maybe Game of Thrones, and other types of franchises that I really love. And I really love world building, so lore book is quite a good read for me. Actually, it's interesting. But this lore book, the first one that I read in Star Wars, the Rebel Files, I was not that fond of. This one was really boring. It didn't give us much information. It was mostly a bunch of articles, not even articles, just a conversation between different important political figures and like bounties, announces, TV ads, and so on. This is the only book that I DNF'd. I only read 50 pages. It's like 200 pages, and yeah, I do not recommend this book. I would say buy it only if you're a collector and want to have all the Chronicle books. Pretty sure it's Chronicle books, yeah. So yeah, this book I give a 3 out of 10. I did not enjoy it. I did not like it. It gave very little information about the rebels. The next book is The Storm of Sword Part 1, Steel and Snow. So these are divided in 2 parts, Storm of Sword and Dance with Dragon. And this one I really loved. They introduce a lot of new POV characters, like Jamie and Brienne, and we continue on the others that we like. We also see a lot more of POV characters like Jon Snow, because in the previous book we didn't see a lot of from him. Not a lot of stuff happened. So we see him going to the wild, meeting up with the wildlings and so on. And we also have Samuel Tarly. He becomes new POV characters, and we see from his point of view, which is quite interesting because Jon Snow is always like brave. He has some moments of fear or undoubt, but even though he has moments of fear, he's continuing on with his duty, and he's kind of pushing it through and overcoming it. But Samuel Tarly, he's quite of a coward, and he's really undoubtful, and he's really doubtful, and he always questions himself on his choices and so on, and he's always afraid. And it's quite interesting seeing from that kind of point of view, apart from all the others, because all the others are mainly not like coward. So yeah, this one I really liked, and Caitlin, we see more about the political side, and Tyrion, of course, love his chapters. We see more of the other sides of Westeros, and yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. And Daenerys also going to Astapor and meeting the Unsullied, and finally like getting her army and so on. It's quite interesting. Yeah, and so this book I give a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it, really fun. I really recommend it. So the next book on the list is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. So as many others, I got introduced to the Middle-earth world through the movies, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and later on the Hobbit trilogy, and then later on I bought the Blu-ray edition of both Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, so I watched the extended edition on both of the trilogies. and I really like the Lord of the Rings. And Hobbit I also enjoyed, not as much as Lord of the Rings, but I really enjoyed it. And the Hobbit, the book, I was quite surprised to see that they actually added a lot of things into the movie, because there is many parts that are in the movies that aren't in the books. But I think it was a good idea or bad idea for the movie to add so much stuff, because it didn't really fit the movie. And the Hobbit is around 300 pages, so I'm so used to reading Song of Ice and Fire books that are like 700 pages. They're really detailed, have a lot of POV characters, so it was quite a different kind of read, but I really enjoyed it. There were always something happening, and the characters like Bilbo Baggins was good characters, and Dwalin. It was interesting to see the world builder, and Gandalf. I really loved Gandalf. But one thing that I was quite a bit disappointed was, after seeing the movie, I hoped that the books would give a lot of the dwarf more character, more like individuality to differentiate them from each other, but it didn't really. It was very few times we really like saw the other dwarves do something, apart from some few. So I don't even remember most of the dwarves' names. I know Dwalin, I'm pretty sure it's the main one. Balin, but I know him from the movies because he's the old one and so on. And I know that Gimli's father is in this book, but I can't remember his name. But yeah, it was a fun read. I love the world building here, and I give it a 7 out of 10. I was hoping more of a more deep dive into their characters and so on, but it was really fun book, and I know that it's not meant for my age group. It's meant for a lower age group, so I'm well aware of that, and I hope that Lord of the Ring trilogy, other Lord of the Ring books, will hopefully give me that character focus, more character focused story. So okay, then we go to the next book, and that's part 2 of Storm of Sword, Blood and Gold by George R.R. Martin. This is part 2 of the third book in the Song on Ice and Fire series, and this one I really enjoyed. It's like the first part was set up. It has a lot of interesting stuff, but it's setting up, and you see introducing some stuff, but that this one resolves, and it resolves really great. I loved all the point of view characters, all the stuff that happens. Really interesting. Caitlyn, seeing how the Starks and their rebellion or the war from their sides goes, and then we see from Daenerys, she meeting this. I'm pretty sure his name is Arstan Whitebeard, something like that, and seeing what that becomes of, and obviously Jaime Lannister's Brienne's there's a relationship and his kind of redemption. Jaime Lannister, one of my favorite character, because he's in the gray area. I really like character in the gray area that are like not quite good, but they are like adapting to the world they live in, and he's trying to redeem himself, but he's still playing his part in the world, as in he's still not the White Knight or that good of a person like Ned Stark or someone like that, but you still see him like trying to redeem himself and trying to do the good thing, but still adapting to the world he lives in. So yeah, I really love this one. I really love the revelations, the endings, and the books after this, the Fist of Crow, I'm gonna talk about sooner. I'm going to talk about it later. But these 3 books, so I'm counting Storm and Sword Part 1 and Part 2 as one book, they feel like a trilogy, because it seems like the character arcs end in this book, and they kind of have a completeness, feels like. So yeah, and this book is probably my favorite of all the ones I have read so far, so I've give this one a 9.5 out of 10. So yeah, not quite a 10 out of 10, but 9.5 out of 10. And the next book is A Jedi's Path, and another lore book. This one was probably my favorite lore book of all the ones I have read so far. And this one, this book talks about the Jedi and their like training, the trials, their culture, and their way of life. And we see a lot of like different type of combat styles, different type of weapons, their lightsabers, their force uses, and so on, and how their institute or their hierarchy works, and so on. And yeah, it also talks a little bit about the Sith, not that much, mostly from the Jedi's point of view and their impression of them. But yeah, this one I really enjoyed, and it's much better than Rebel Files. Give you really interesting information in a way that's easier to consume. So this one I give an 8 out of 10 because I really loved it. It gave me really interesting information, gave me stuff I wanted to learn about the Jedi, and so on. And the next book is another lore book, but not Star Wars. This time it's from the Elder Scrolls. So the Tales of Tamriel, Book 1, The Land. It's a lore book from ESO, Elder Scrolls Online, and it's structured like the Rebel Files, as in it's has 1 to 4 pages of small stories and so on. So it's not that consistent with the stories. Some of them are really interesting. It might be like a person going out with a guy and then realizing slowly that the guy is a vampire by like looking at how he acts and so on. Like an orc's guide to Tamriel. And we see a lot from the different kind of races, like the orcs, the elves, high elves, dark elves, Nords, and so on. And some of them have a pact or alliance, and see how that works. We also see a bit more like guides about the monsters in this universe. It's quite a lot of fun. So I give this one a 7 out of 10. It was interesting, but not that consistent. Some of the stuff is easy to forget, but some of the stuff is really like interesting. And my favorite all-time game is Skyrim. It introduced me to gaming and made me really love gaming as a hobby. Okay, now we are coming to we are close to the end. So the Book of the Sith is another lore book, a Star Wars lore book, and it's about the Sith, obviously from the name. There's a bunch of writings from different kinds of Sith lore. Pretty sure it's like 5, and it's quite interesting to see their different philosophies and way of thinking. And all the Sith are from different kind of time periods. So some are in the Old Republic, when the Sith was more of a more like the Jedi, as in they had there were plenty of more Sith and they had an order. And then we see from Palpatine's point of view how he's like more manipulating and getting inside the system and creating an empire from the inside. You see from Palpatine's master Plagueis and his like obsession with creating life and using the Force to create life with the midichlorians. And then we see like Plagueis master. I don't remember his name. Might put something here. But he's like more science focused Sith, and he's kind of experimenting and doing stuff like that. And then we have the Night Sisters. So it doesn't only talk about the Sith Lords, also other kind of Dark Force users like the Night Sisters and their leader that I don't remember. Might put something here. And her kind of way of using the dark side, and how their power differentiates from the other Sith users. So yeah, I give this one an 7 out of 10. It was quite interesting. I really enjoyed it, but it was not as good as the Jedi, because Jedi really went deep inside the culture, and the Sith book does, but it's more individual ideologies and not the Sith as a whole. I assume that the Sith as a whole is quite hard to do, because after the rule of two, it's mainly become individually based, depending on the Sith Lord at the time, but maybe a bit more focus on the Old Republic and the Sith Order under that time would have been nice. But I really love this book, and it's a 7 out of 10. Really recommend if you like Star Wars and the Sith especially. And finally we are at the last book, and the last book is The Feast of Crows by George R. R. Martin. It's the 4th book in the Song and Ice and Fire series. It's a 5th in this edition. So this is also a pretty big book, 800 pages. It's quite different from the other Song of Ice and Fire book, as in it focuses on plenty of new characters, and also introduces existing characters as POV characters, like Cersei Lannister. But I really like the world building in this book, because we get to see the Iron Islands and the Dorne side of view, and how they operate, and their culture, and their thoughts and experience around the events during the Song and Ice and Fire series. So the only thing that I might not love is that we take a pause from the character that we have known so long, like Tyrion, Daenerys, Jon Snow. Like none of those are in these books, mostly because they're going to be in the next book, and the next book and this book plays out during the same time. So that's why we don't see him here. But we have Jaime Lannister, as I said before, one of my favorite POV characters. We see him, and as always, it's quite interesting and fun to read these chapters. And it's also quite interesting to read from the Greyjoys storyline. I think their storylines was my favorite storyline in this book so far. And it's also interesting, the Dorns will go more in depth in the King's Guard and their kind of, not culture, but their traditions and so on, and learn more about their history. We see more of Arya Stark and her journey. We see also Sansa Stark, that goes by a new name, Alina Stone, and seeing her evolve during this book. So yeah, I really like this book. I wish there were more of the character that we read before, but that's in the next book, so we might find out what happens with them there. But this book I give an 8 out of 10, because of all the Song and Ice and Fire books, I think this one probably has the best world building, because we see a lot of new things, from Dorne to the Greyjoys. We saw a bit of Greyjoys in the Clash of Kings, but this one will go deep dive into the culture and the way of thinking and so on. And so we are finally done, and I am recording, so hopefully I won't lose this footage. I will be able to edit this, and it will probably be out today or tomorrow. I wanted to be out today, as in the 7th of July, but it didn't happen, but hopefully next time I will make sure that my camera does not lose its battery. So this is a quick book review for the first half of 2021. The books I have read so far. I will probably do one in the end of the year, hopefully, if I continue on doing this video as I planned. So this was really fun doing this, so hopefully I will see you next time. I don't know what I'm planned, but might be something fun, might be somewhere outdoors as I planned before it started raining. So see you guys later, and have a fun day, happy day, and see you guys later.